Good evening and welcome to Legal Tech Live. This is episode 119. I'm your host, Nick Rishwain, and I'm here tonight with one of the two founding partners of BNH.ai. It is a law firm and a technology company. Our guest tonight is Patrick Hall. He is the principal scientist at BNH.ai. Patrick also serves as a visiting professor in the Department of Decision Sciences at the George Washington University. He is a frequent writer, speaker, and advisor on the responsible and transparent use of AI and ML technologies. Before co-founding BNH, Patrick led H2O.ai's efforts in responsible AI, resulting in one of the world's first widely deployed commercial solutions for explainable and fair machine learning. He also held global customer-facing roles and R&D research roles at the SAS Institute. Patrick studied computational chemistry at the University of Illinois before graduating from the Institute for Advanced Analytics in North Carolina State University. I had to read the whole thing because it's impressive, and it's not what we're used to, Patrick, when we're speaking.
It is all true. It's
all true. That's great. But it's also not what we're used to when we're speaking to a founding member of a law firm, because you guys are founded in DC, which allows for what we call non-lawyer ownership, or people who don't like the term non-lawyer. It allows other equity partners, essentially. And so tell me a little bit about how this law firm tech company came to be, if you will.
So I really have to give credit for sort of the visionary aspect of this. If it is visionary, I think it's a little visionary. To my partner Andrew Burt, who is an attorney and who saw this coming even further back than I did. So I think I became aware of this need for extremely tight collaboration between legal and data science, or just anybody who's making a computer system that makes decisions that affect people's lives and could potentially break the law. I think I started experiencing that maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I think Andrew may have seen it coming even before then. So I have to give him some credit there.
Okay, that's fair. That's nice of you to do, not take all the credit. Okay, but tell us then. So he maybe had the catalyst there, and how did the two of you come to be partners in the firm?
Well, I mean, we're friends and kind of met each other just in DC. Andrew was serving as chief legal officer at a data privacy startup called Immuto, which is a really cool company as well, and has helped incubate the law firm, and we're very appreciative of that. And so we were kind of running in the DC startup circle, which is actually not very big. And like I said, I have been working on this responsible AI product, a product that tried to give people more insight into how these complex systems make decisions, and then trying to make sure those decisions were fair by some measure.
Okay.
And so in doing that, I was just kind of constantly pushing up against the law, and not intentionally at all. Not intentionally. Right. I didn't know what I had got myself into.
Right.
But yeah, it turns out if you want to use computers to make decisions really quickly about millions of people, there are some legal consequences to be aware of, and many data scientists to this day don't get that.
Interesting. So you had this, okay, I'm running up against the law. I'm trying to do things really fast, and I think I'm moving fast and breaking stuff. And can you tell us what kind of legal issues you were running into?
Yeah. This is all totally public and before the law firm. No client confidentiality issues here. And I think the people involved would be happy about me talking about this anyway. So basically I got into this because if you want to sell machine learning software, you need to sell it to banks, because banks have money, and Google and Facebook also have money, but they make their own machine learning. And so if you want to sell machine learning, you got to sell it to banks. And in America, and this is a great thing, if you turn someone down for a lending decision, you have to tell them why. You have to, if you turn someone down using an automated technology for a lending decision, you have to give them adverse action notices. You have to give them up to 4 reasons why. And machine learning systems tend to be really complicated, and giving those 4 reasons was difficult when I got into this. And so that was one of the first places that I ran into, like, hey, if you want us to take you seriously and consider buying this technology, you have to help us explain why these decisions were made.
Okay.
And so that's really the first place that I ran into legal considerations. And then I'd say after that, then you get into all the very complex and thorny non-discrimination issues in consumer finance.
Okay.
And I can say, you know, a lot of the work that we do at BNH, which is shorthand for Burton Hall, is related to sort of non-discrimination in algorithmic decision making.
Okay. Which we've seen a lot of the news stories that we see on automation and AI has to do with the bias related to AI decision making, or the implicit or whatever, or how they become biased. So
it is very real. It is very real, and something to be concerned about.
Okay. All right. And so then you decide to marry the 2 ideas of the data science and the law firm, and to offer which services exactly? How do you guys offer services?
So in some ways we're kind of like the Debbie Downers of AI.
Okay.
And I would say Andrew and I are both proponents of the technology, and think that, you know, just like any early stage technology, it's going to have some bumps. And I think it's really sad that those bumps right now are disproportionately affecting people who already experience a lot of stupid, bad crap in our society anyway.
Right.
So we do a lot of work with you know, algorithmic discrimination issues. And essentially people call us for 2 reasons. Either they don't want to have a problem, which is what we prefer and how we like to work, or they have had or are having a problem, and they need help. So basically, you don't want legal problems with your AI systems, and or you've had a legal problem with your AI system.
And those are generally the customers that you're helping, or the clients that you're helping. And in what kind of issue? But primarily in the consumer finance, is that where predominantly your clientele is coming from these days?
We do a little bit of work there, but I would say what's really been, and going into this, I thought that's where all our work would be.
Okay.
But it's not. We really work across verticals. Some big tech, some healthcare, some employment, which you know, employment, you know, discrimination in employment, you know, hot button bad stuff, you know, like very serious legal consequences there, and lots of complexity. And so we've been working across verticals, you know, even looking into some computer vision, facial recognition type problems. So that's been a very pleasant surprise, actually, because I when we set out, I thought we would just be working for banks.
That's it's what I was thinking where you were going. So that's interesting but the employment makes sense, because the ramifications for a company whose automated system is removing certain people over and over, that's going to become a real problem for them.
That is. And you may be aware, you may not be aware, but senators recently wrote a public open letter, one of those senatorial letters to the EEOC, asking them what they're going to do about algorithmic discrimination in hiring. So it is an interesting place to work, and we really, you know, hope that we're helping people there.
It's great. And so primarily, are you guys the article that I read, it led to me posting on LinkedIn and then saying, you know what, I'm going to reach out to these guys and see if they'll come on the show, which is how I found you. I think it was a law.com article. And I was fascinated with what you're doing. But that article, as I recall, says you're doing, you know, your co-founder Andrew is doing the law side of things, and you're doing the data science side of things.
Mhm.
But it talked about in some instances you're doing the consultancy, and in other instances you're actually developing, and that was interesting to me. So what are you developing as a law firm when you're doing that?
Well, so this is one of those places where I have to be really careful and not get into too many specifics, but
yeah, good broad strokes.
Broad strokes. We help people test their AI systems for fundamental performance, product liability issues. That's the simplest thing. Does it work? Does it work the way it's described or not? And then we can help people with many different aspects of algorithmic discrimination, testing for it, attempting to fix it. There's a word that's thrown around in data science circles, debiasing. That I don't think there's really any such thing, but you can do better than people are doing today, and so we can help with that on the tech side, and we have even just fixed people's systems. I mean, I've been neck deep and I've spent the last 10 years neck deep in code. But it's a little bit different doing it for a law firm. That's for sure. That's for sure.
I believe that because there's different things that apply there, right?
Yes.
Client privileges and privileged information, and that's interesting. When you're fixing these, so when a client comes to you generally, and I'm trying to ask the questions in a way that you can answer them without going into that. When they come to you and they say, we've got this software that is giving us an algorithmic bias or discrimination issue, is this software that they've generally developed, or have they had an outside vendor build it for them and you have to fix that?
It can be both.
It can be both. Okay.
Yep. And I would urge so I think one thing that the BNH team ends up talking about a lot is these risks with vendors and third parties in your AI systems. And I think, if I'm not boring your audience too much, I'll go ahead and say that when large companies build, state-of-the-art machine learning systems, it's a large undertaking, right? And it almost always involves purchasing expertise. So outside consultants, and it oftentimes involves purchasing data and software. So you might have 50 people or 12 people involved internally, and then that same amount externally, and then buying different pieces from here and there in the economy.
Gotcha.
So there's a significant amount of third-party risk when large organizations develop these systems.
Okay, and and it is. Do a lot of the problems come from the software itself, or the data that maybe is purchased and is corrupted?
So it's oftentimes the data, and this is really scary, right? This is creepy, scary stuff to me. Like, just the numbers that we record about ourselves as a society, it can really encode a lot of racial bias and gender bias, and bias against disabled people. And it's really creepy to see that happen, right? We're just talking about like the most basic kind of financial data, or the kind of phone you use, those kinds of things.
Right.
And so that can really poison these machine learning systems. That's probably the most common way it happens. Not the only way it happens, though. Not the only way it happens.
Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting. So a lot of times the data that we're already collecting as a society is biased from the beginning.
Yeah, because it represents us.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. We're having a hard time streaming over to the Facebook group tonight. Facebook doesn't want to play nice with Zoom. It happens sometimes. Thank you, Jasmine, for joining. I'm glad you found us here on the Zoom channel. If you have questions for Patrick, please ask them. Yeah, that is fascinating. So the data and then you add the technology on top of that, and or the machine learning on top of that, and now you're getting the algorithmic bias.
Yeah.
Can you share with us with without giving away any client information, but more like factual information of a situation where your firm has gotten involved and done some really great work. Not giving away any identifiable information. You could say something as broad as healthcare. In a healthcare situation, we did this.
This is, this is the most rewarding part of the work for me. And it's very difficult work. And I think, if anybody out there is thinking about starting an AI law firm, I would counsel you to think carefully, because we're really early. We're really early. But I think there's a handful of our clients that just wouldn't have made it to the, made it to releasing the software, as quickly as they did, and maybe not even at all without the kind of expertise we were able to bring to bear. Because these are very thorny issues internally to companies as well, right? Like no one wants their baby called ugly. Very few data scientists understand the legal consequences of what they're doing. Very few attorneys understand the details of what their data scientists are doing. Very few executives, enjoy meeting with lawyers or understand what the data scientists are doing. And so I think just acting as translators in some kind of tough situations is one of the most valuable things that we can do for our clients. And I think, I can think of a couple clients that we played a crucial role in helping them get software out the door.
So you're, in essence, your firm is coming in and almost being project managers as a consultancy. And
there is an aspect of that, yeah,
because you're really bringing a bunch of stakeholders together who maybe wouldn't otherwise have an interest in this, and trying to shake the hands and kiss the babies and get everybody to agree and move forward on a project.
That it is that simple. And then when you add the complexities of, and again, not a lawyer, not an expert on the legal side, but the complexities of employment law, the complexities of US non-discrimination law, the complexities of product liability law, plus the complexities of machine learning and AI. I mean, it's a hard thing for companies to jump into. And so again, I think that's another, kind of bit of knowledge I would share, is that if you're an executive who happens to be tuning in, like, you just have to realize, if like I said in the beginning, if people at your company are making a system that's going to be making decisions very quickly about millions of people, there is likely some kind of legal consequence for that. And it's complex stuff.
Yeah. So in my day work, I work with expert witnesses and consultants who work in legal litigation support role.
Yeah.
And BNH has sort of combined the two here. They've brought in where in a lot of law firms they'd have to say, well, I got to bring in a consultant who can kind of run me through this. And you're offering that service through the firm. We've got the data scientist who's actually an owner of the firm, and we bring him along with us for those discussions. And now we get the consulting aspect, that the expert aspect, as well as the legal knowledge. And
I think, and I should say, we do have another attorney on staff, and we have some support staff. So it's really not just me and Andrew. That I should say that the B&H team, I think a lot of the magic happens like in the fierce discussions that we have after the client meetings, and like the comments in the Google Docs and the memos that we're writing. There's a lot of it's very difficult for data scientists and attorneys to communicate. I think we communicate in very different ways. Like a good data scientist is a scientist and uses the scientific method. And the scientific method prizes, like it prizes getting to a single correct answer. Whereas, my impressions of working with attorneys is it's more about the argument. It's more about the journey, right? It's about, can we make a convincing argument? And for scientists, it's more about bottom line rightness. And so
Mhm.
there's a conflict there. There's a fundamental conflict there that then, and I think honestly, that's where some of the magic happens is like, if you just have an expert witness or you just have a consultant you're bringing in, right, you get to talk to that person for, an hour or two.
Right.
And then, Andrew and I and the rest of our staff are like beating each other up and driving each other crazy, trying to get to some good compromise between these two philosophies to help solve client problems. And so I think a lot of the magic actually happens kind of, in Zoom calls with no clients and in Google Doc comments.
Yeah, really tearing into, because that's interesting, bringing the philosophy, and the Socratic and legal method together, two different philosophies of the scientific method with the Socratic method almost. And the attorney being about risk assessment, and you and the data scientist trying to come down to what is the best possible answer
like what
to this.
Empirically is right.
Right. Or closest to right based on his hypothesis. Right. Yeah. And then the attorney having to then balance the risk and identify the risks associated with this and how to fix it from a legal standpoint. That's this gives me a lot of hope. I wish more law firms would open up in DC in using this combined.
There are a handful of others.
I've heard.
We haven't met them. Well, that's not true. We haven't had close interactions with them, but there are people. There's like forensic accountants and some economists. But we are, as far as we know, perhaps the first in the world to combine legal and data science. We can't confirm, but we think we're first in the US. Very potentially cool. First in the world.
I hadn't heard about it, and I know there's at least one other legal tech company who did something similar, and I think they have a software as a service, which is different than how you guys are doing it.
So I think, like I said in the beginning, I think unfortunately we're kind of it's not unfortunate, but it's just real. Like a real part of AI machine learning is risk. And so we're on that risk side, as opposed to I spent, before we started, I told you I spent 4 years commuting to Silicon Valley and being a product maker. So I've been on that side too. But now we're solidly on sort of the risk side.
Yeah. Where do you see, what type of clientele do you anticipate in the next 5-10 years? Has insurance popped up as in clientele already? To the degree that I can comment, sure. Yes. Okay.
There's certainly, so I'll tell you one thing that's going on.
I'm just wondering, it would seem to me that insurance would be kind of coming into this in the future.
It is. And I'll tell you one thing that's driving it right now is a lot of, insurance is regulated at the state level, is my understanding anyway. And a lot of states
that's accurate. That is accurate.
A lot of states are considering banning the use of credit scores in different types of insurance mathematical models, because credit scores are like the prototypical problematic data. Mm-hmm. They are accurate predictors of whether someone will pay you back, but they are also highly correlated to race. Mm-hmm. And so many insurance company currently, it's perfectly legal to use credit score in a model. If you do, you should be testing it for discrimination though. But a lot of state level insurance regulators are considering banning the use of credit scores in different mathematical models in insurance to help cut down on algorithmic bias. And that's certainly a topic that lawyers at insurance companies are starting to become aware of.
Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of thinking who else might have a need for AI. I mean, I think a lot of people have a need for it, or will have a need for it as things. And so I was thinking, you've talked healthcare, you've talked now insurance and other housing and employment issues. So
Yep.
I was thinking, in the next 5 years, where do you see the growth in your business?
So it all depends on regulation.
Okay.
And I do, this technology should be regulated, right? We regulate airplanes, we regulate nuclear, we should be regulating AI. Like, are you kidding? Like
Right.
This needs to be regulated. And really, I think people try to, people think about it, almost as magic or something. I don't think about it like that. It's just, it's just a new generation of potentially transformative commercial technologies, just like airplanes and nuclear power were, 40, 50 years ago. And it needs to be regulated, and it needs to be regulated in a smart way. I mean, I'm not for over regulation, but there's regulation brewing, right? In the EU, especially, right? And so the EU just recently announced a very broad, GDPR like AI regulation.
Oh, okay.
And it'll take them a couple of years to adopt it, very likely. But once they do, then I think we'll see a lot of large organizations, much like many large organizations in the US choose to comply with GDPR to make their lives easier. I think, many large organizations in the US will comply with whatever AI regulations the EU passes.
Right.
The FTC, the good old Federal Trade Commission, has been saber rattling on AI since at least the beginning of 2020. And so, they're promising more enforcement and good legal term that I don't even fully know what it means, but for the first time this year, the FTC disgorged an algorithm.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there was a over UDAP, and again, got to keep saying I'm not a lawyer, and I don't, like if you hire BNH, you will get a real lawyer.
You'll get a real lawyer.
Yeah.
Patrick is the data scientist.
Yeah. But so this small-ish computer vision company had put like a photo manager out on the web called EverAlbum. But they were using the pictures that people uploaded into EverAlbum to train a computer vision system for another line of business without telling people about that, and potentially in violation of some state data privacy laws. And so the FTC deleted the algorithm, and that's the reductionist take there, that the FTC disgorged that algorithm.
Okay. It reminds me of, God, I think it had to be 2017 now, in Microsoft released Tay.ai.
2016.
Was it 16?
Oh, yeah. So part of my academic work is studying failures of AI systems, because, and I'm serious, like, you should really think about AI just like airplanes, okay? Airplanes used to crash into mountains, but they don't do that anymore because we learned from those failures. And so I'm part of a group of researchers that helps collect examples of failures of AI systems. And Tay is usually the first one that we talk about. Tay is usually the first one that we talk about.
Well, because it was such a spectacular
failure. Such a spectacular, yes.
In such a short amount. It was less than 24 hours, I think. It was like, I think 8 hours.
16 hours, and
was
like
it?
90 some thousand tweets in 16 hours.
And it only took a short amount of time for it to become terribly racist.
Yes. And so if you'll indulge me, I'll give my spiel on Tay. So Tay is a really good example of a complex machine learning system. And I have to say, released by Microsoft Research, an organization that I might say is the top organization in the world for researching the responsible use of AI. So keep that in mind.
That's good.
Microsoft Research couldn't get this right, at least the first time, and they've had some failures since as well. It's hard to get this right. So Tay is released. There's no neo-Nazi code in Tay, right? It's just supposed to have fun interacting with people, but it gets those biased data inputs, and then it spits that biased data output right back out. And so I like to say that Tay was actually a security incident. So
Okay.
when you intentionally alter the input data to a machine learning system to evoke kind of a bad response, we call that data poisoning. So data poisoning is a security problem. So Tay experienced a security attack, and because AI systems are very complex and unpredictable, it spiraled into an algorithmic discrimination problem.
Okay.
And I think the reason we talk Tay so much is because it's very educational. Complex systems fail in complex ways. I don't think anyone at Microsoft Research was thinking data poisoning attack morphing into algorithmic discrimination. But those are the kinds of things that can go wrong in the worst case with AI systems.
And when you put an AI system on the
Twitter, yeah.
That's
many Twitter users probably would have told them that was the first thing that was going to happen.
Right. They didn't. They hadn't played on the platform before this happened. And so every troll in the world had to take a crack at Tay.ai. Chris Draper has a question for us here, because you talked about the regulation and that you're pro regulation or sensible regulation. And he asks, if you were to take a performance-based regulation approach to AI, what are the first three regulations you think are most necessary? I know, put you on the spot.
No, I'm just not sure. So I'm gonna change the framing a little bit and say I'm not sure that I would take a performance-based approach. I think that there's some really basic stuff that should be regulated, that wouldn't affect the details of people's day-to-day work, that would have a really positive impact on sort of the public use and perception of AI. And so I'll give you some examples.
All right.
One would be anytime a machine learning system is making an important decision about someone's life, and it is used in these ways today, lending, employment, criminal justice, that stuff is very real and sort of regulated in very different ways. Education, people should be able to appeal the decisions.
Housing, I was thinking housing is probably the
housing. So if an automated system, I don't care if it's machine learning, AI, or just regular computer code, if an automated system is making a decision that affects your life in a serious way, you should have the right to appeal that decision. And so we do this in credit lending today. We kind of started out talking about this, the adverse action notices, right? If you're turned down for a credit card by an automated algorithm, you have to be given 4 reasons why, and you have some amount of time to say, hey, your reasons aren't right. My credit score is not 600. My credit score is 750. Here's the receipts. You need to change your decision. So I would say that having an appeal and recourse process for automated decisions is crucially important. And then I'd also say having incident response plans is crucially important, because instead of people finger pointing inside an organization while an AI system is spinning out of control and the problem is getting worse and more people are being harmed, they should be invoking an AI incident response plan, and they should have answers to simple questions like, who has the budget to call in incident responders? Who has the technical expertise to shut the system down? Who has the business authority to shut the system down? So I think that we don't have to get into the hair of data scientists and kind of, I don't think it's ruining. I think it should be regulated. I'm fine with some regulation and getting into the hair of data scientists, but we don't have to get too much into their day-to-day work to ensure consumer protection. So those are my thoughts. I'm more of a technician than a policy person, but obviously I've had to learn some policy. So those are that's how I start thinking about AI regulation. And it's somewhat based on what's already done in banking. There's a doctrine known as model risk management that comes mostly from the Federal Reserve, but from some other regulators. And it's not about technology. It's about, for the most part, it's about business processes and the
Okay.
business processes that are required to control these systems.
Okay. All right. Good
So hopefully,
question, Chris.
hopefully, Chris, yeah, thank you for your question, Chris. And hopefully I didn't sidestep it too much.
Now, Chris will come back with a follow-up question if he thinks you sidestepped it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. If you guys got any questions, I've kept Patrick about 35 minutes. We'll go maybe 10 more minutes if that works for you, Patrick. Sure. What are we talking? What do you need to know? What do your clients need to know about BNH.ai that we haven't covered? We've covered quite a bit in 35 minutes, but yeah, what issue, if you were to pitch your firm to a potential client, what do you need them to know?
I would say that we are product people. I think that's the main thing that I would say is that we are product people. You know, I spent 4 years in Silicon Valley and 4 years before that, you know, just on the front lines as an engineer and a product manager. And you know, my partner, Andrew, led one of the first legal engineering teams, and you know, has worked in the startup space for a long time. And so we're not scary, mean lawyers. Basically, we want to help people get their products made, but do it legally and do it right. So I think that's the main thing that I'd like to get across is, you know, we're product people. We're not afraid to get in the trenches with you. And our goal typically is to help people get the product out the door, if we can do so legally and ethically.
Excellent. And Chris does have a follow-up.
That's fine. He doesn't know who he's messing with on this one. So
when thinking about, and let me read it for our audio only listeners, when thinking about things like auditability, transparency, or repeatability, how would you approach those?
Very good question. Very good question. So again, I think it is hard to walk the line of not over-regulating, but demanding that people do reasonable things. And just for some background, I would say that outside of financial services, which, you know, has serious non-discrimination regulations, serious sort of model performance regulations, data scientists are doing some unreasonable things. And so I do think we need some control there. I know how technically I would approach these things that Chris is asking about. So maybe I'll answer it like that.
Okay.
On the transparency side, there have been huge breakthroughs. There have been huge breakthroughs technologically in the last 5 years. So there are at least 2 new major avenues of technology that can be used to make AI systems more transparent. And that transparency really helps with accountability because we can see how it works. And it really helps with repeatability because, again, we can see how it works. Mm-hmm. And to go one level deeper on the details there are new types of mathematical models that are highly accurate and also highly transparent. And that's really a breakthrough because, say, in the past 20 or 30 years, in machine learning, we operated under what turns out to be a false trade-off. We thought that to be accurate, we had to be more complex and more black box and so complex that no human could ever understand. And luckily, it just turns out that's not true. It just turns out that some very brilliant researchers, and I'll throw out their names because they deserve credit, Cynthia Rudin at Duke University, Rich Caruana at Microsoft Research, and many others came up with highly accurate mathematical models that are nearly completely transparent. And so that is just a game changer. Okay. And we also now have the ability to summarize the decisions that the system makes. And the technical name there is post hoc explainability. And so for many decisions that machine learning systems make, to differing degrees of accuracy, we're able to summarize those and say, hey, the reason you were turned down from this credit card is because your length of credit file, the number of years you've had a credit file is too low, your credit score is too low. We're able to break the highly complex decision of the machine learning system down and into these individual contributing factors. And 5 years ago, we were not really able to do that. And so major breakthroughs in transparency have increased the ability for have increased auditability, increased repeatability, increased transparency. And so, we say that transparency enables debugging, enables governance. So transparency is really like this baseline control that enables all these other things. And so I'll leave it at that, but I can drown you in links and my own writing and other people's writing about transparency and repeatability and auditability. This is like my lunch every day. So
okay,
it's good stuff, and it's a good question. And again, hopefully I gave a direct enough answer and didn't water it down too much.
And I'm sure Chris would eat up those links that you would drown him in. That's kind of he loves that stuff. About 40 minutes in here, Jasmine, Chris, or Chris. Looks like we got both Chris's in here tonight. So Jasmine, Chris, or Chris, if you have any questions, our guest is Patrick Hall of BNH.ai, a law firm and data science company. I don't want to keep Patrick all night. Patrick, if folks are interested in getting learning more about you, where do they go? How do they contact you?
Well, we do have a website, which is BNH.ai. So thank you for that. And to find me, it's sad but true, but I'm on LinkedIn. So and I do try on Twitter. I do try on Twitter, but I get more love on LinkedIn, and I don't know what that says about me. but you can join everyone else on the internet in asking me questions on LinkedIn. So don't be shy. You won't be the first person that day or maybe even that hour.
Excellent. And yeah, the website is BNH.ai, and that's N as in Nicholas, not B and H. So I just want to make that clear for our audio listeners. And I thank you for being on the show and being willing to come and talk about your innovative law firm and data science company. It's been a very, very good chat. I'd love to, as artificial intelligence continues to grow and impact our world, love to have you and even your partner on it in the future in 6 months or a year to discuss and certainly as regulations change, because you guys will be at the forefront of that, being in DC and helping clients. So would love to have you back on in the future. I
think we'll take you up on that.
Sounds great. All right, folks. My guest tonight was Patrick Hall of BNH.ai. He is a data scientist with that law firm and data science company. Our next show is July 1st. We'll be live with Drew Amoroso, founder and CEO of Due Course. They are a training SaaS product for law firms. And check us out then. Don't disappear right after recording, Patrick. I'll have a couple of comments for you. And thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thanks.